Hello, accountability buddies. This is Les, and this is vlog number 59. And it has been 2 days, or this is the second day after my 25-mile bike ride. I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the after effects of pushing my limits. So I had Friday off from work, and I decided I was going to make the 12.5-mile bike ride out to Little Wolf Cafe out in Ipswich, Massachusetts. It is exactly 12.5 miles from my house. And so 25-mile round trip or 41-kilometer round trip. So, the trip out was pretty uneventful. I took Route 1A, which has pretty wide shoulders on the majority of it. There are some sections that are less wide, and there are definitely some gnarly city sections where the intersections are pretty scary. And then there are some town sections where there are some intersections which are pretty rough too. But then once you get outside of the towns, particularly outside of my city and then outside of the town centers, it's pretty smooth going. Also, there are lots of roadie cyclists. So, the guys on the really expensive bikes wearing all spandex and stuff, packing on the miles and packing on the kilometers. So the people on the road who are driving out there on the regular recognize cyclists. And for the most part, I was given pretty wide, when people went around me, they did it by a pretty good berth. I had a good distance. For the most part, there was one or two cars that came a little close. I didn't get dieseled at all by any big trucks, so that was fortunate. It was a good ride. I cannot complain about the ride. So I got out to Little Wolf Cafe, and the downtown section of Ipswich was a little hairy. There's a small bridge to go over that it barely has enough room for two cars. The sidewalk is closed on that bridge, and I had to take the road, and that was a little scary, and people were definitely frustrated with me. There were sections of the road that I rode on the sidewalk, and I know that a lot of my cycling friends don't like that, and I'm not a fan of it either. I would much rather have bike lanes or dedicated bike lanes and intersections that are actually safe for cyclists. And you'll notice in the videos that I've uploaded that in quite a few sections, I used pedestrian crosswalks to cross the street. And there were a few of those pedestrian crosswalks, particularly just before Little Wolf, and then as I was leaving, where, so here in Massachusetts, we have a lot of pedestrian crosswalks where you push a light and then you get blinking yellow lights, and that's to signal the cars and the trucks to stop. And usually they work pretty well. I know that there are a couple of sections for the rail trails where people really are good about stopping. Where I was riding my bike, you can see 3 or 4 cars in each direction blow through those flashing yellow lights. And if it were during school times, that would get someone pulled over and ticketed. I don't know about outside of school, but you're supposed to stop for those, and people just weren't. And this is why riding my bike and walking makes me nervous, because people just ignore traffic signals. But that's a whole other rant, a whole other vlog. And then the ride back was pretty good too. So on my way out, when I hit the 7-mile mark, I felt like I just kind of I was warmed up and ready to go. I felt really good at that point. And when I hit the 12-mile mark, I also felt really good. I felt like I could keep going. My initial intent when I got to the cafe, I was going to call my wife and have her come and pick me up. And when I got out there, I realized I could keep going. And, on my way back, there's a spot where I hit about 18 miles. I was like, well, I should think about calling Chris and have her come and pick me up. And then when I hit the 20-mile mark, there's a giant boulder on the side of the road where, it commemorates a pastor from Salem giving some sort of speech about water and other stuff that's mildly offensive in terms of the language. And so I stopped there and I ate a protein bar, drank some water. I was like, it was at the 20-mile mark. I was like, I'm done. I am toast. I should call Chris. And I was like, no, you know what? I can make this. I can do this. And that was probably a mistake. So I think if I had quit at that point, I would still have been sore the next day, but not as sore as I was. When I got home, my legs were just rubber, and they hurt, that first night, but not too bad. The next day, and actually overnight, as things sort of cooled off and whatnot, my muscles ached a lot. So the main muscles that hurt were the tops of my thighs. So that was not something that I was expecting. So the tops of my thighs, like those big, like, muscles in my thighs, hurt a lot. It really felt bruised, like, they'd been hit with something, and just kind of burned for a good part of the day. I also did not sleep well. We made the mistake of going to this little burger place, and I had a Diet Coke. And that was also a mistake. Like, after something like that, I just really need to sleep. And I should not have had the caffeinated soda. I should have just, like, I would have slept hard that night if I'd let myself. Instead, I had the Diet Coke, and that was a mistake. But yeah, so those thigh muscles really hurt. My calves also were sore, but not as sore as my thigh muscles. And I think, when I'm walking, I'm using my calf muscles a lot, but not quite as intensely as I did during that bike ride. And also my glutes. My glutes hurt a lot. And a little bit in my lower back. During the ride, I had some pain in my hands and my forearms from being leaned over on the handlebars, or putting weight on my handlebars. The handlebars aren't quite back enough for me to sit up straight. There were a few times where I stopped just to stretch my back out, to stretch my shoulders and my arms, because being in that kind of hunched over position was a lot on my forearms. So this is making me, like, I'm making some notes about things that I need to make changes on the bike. And I haven't put my new handlebars on yet because I don't have all of the stuff to do it. So this is another thing that, like, as I'm waiting for things to come in from AliExpress, to get here from China, it's just like, as I wait for stuff, like, I want to put those new handlebars on, and probably those would have been much more comfortable on this ride than my current set of straight. They're straight with a little bit of a rise, which are great for a short ride, but they don't offer changes in hand position. So I found myself holding on to the bar ends like this, and really wishing that I had something to give myself a different hand position on the bike. Because when I was holding my hands in other positions, my arms and hands were much more comfortable. I wasn't having any numbness, just sort of like discomfort. And I know numbness is a pretty common complaint for people who are cycling. So I was just kind of thinking about how I'm going to change the front end of the bike. Then also in terms of the seat. The seat is great for commuting, for short rides. But as I was riding on Friday, I'm realizing that it is not the right saddle for me. I need something a little wider. So generally, like in yoga, it's called your sit bones, like where your hips, like where that large hip bone, on the inside, like where your groin is, where those bones sit, on the ground or in a chair, and especially on a bike, you need something wide enough for your hips. Finding a women's saddle that fits is again more difficult than finding a men's saddle for men. Finding a saddle for men that fit because they're narrower, we're a little wider, and also finding something that's not too wide. I looked, at Walmart, and the saddles they had were either ridiculously tiny or ridiculously wide. And for long sessions, like what I'm hoping to do, like I want to do more of these 25-mile rides. They're just too wide. It'd be like awful. So, I am going to go to the local bike shop, although I read the guy's blog, and now I don't particularly like him. He sounds like a snob. So I'm probably going to go to the local bike shop and look at saddles. I'm also going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods. I'm going to see if they have a charge ladle, which is a woman's saddle. It's a little wider in the seat area, and that will probably solve a lot of my problems. And for a lot of people, I'm not going to buy a high-end leather saddle. I don't know. I don't like the idea of it. Also, they don't last. But anyway, that's enough of that. So, in terms of what I would do different, I really think that if I had listened to myself and my body instead of pushing it, I would have stopped at 18 or 20 miles, and that would have been best for my body. Recovery would have been a lot easier. Saturday, I was pretty sore. I did take a long nap. I felt a lot better after the nap, and I feel a lot better today. My legs aren't nearly as sore. This is something that I've been wondering about in terms of recovery. How long is it going to take for me to recover from these things? Because initially, when I started this journey, recovery from just walking, took way longer than it used to. And right now, I'm feeling like I'm recovering from this ride faster than I expected. And I think part of that is that my blood sugars are evened out. The ribelsis is actually helping a lot. My diet is helping. And just the exercise is also helping. If my blood sugars were still unmanaged, the blood sugars would be in there continuing to tear the muscles apart and do damage to the cells instead of helping them to heal. So, another thing that I noticed, at least for my body, and again, I'm not a doctor, don't take this as medical advice, but something that I have personally noticed in my body is that, after this ride, all day yesterday, my blood sugars were on the low end of things. I needed to eat more. I'm also noticing that this morning that my blood sugars have been on the lower end of things and eat more even. So I think that doing this kind of hard ride is actually really, really good for my diabetes. Just in terms of managing the blood sugars and what I'm eating. It's just making a big difference, and I'm feeling better. So those are all positive things. And, that's sort of where I'm at right now, is I feel pretty good. I'm recovering better than expected. And, yeah, I'm looking forward to my next ride. I think it's going to be difficult, but good. And, hoping to make a few changes on the bike before I do that. I want to get the 10 gear cassette on there. I want to get the new gear shift on there. I also have to go and buy a new chain. I'm just thinking about all of the stuff that I got to do to the bike to get it ready. I had hoped to do all of that yesterday and would have, except for the fact that the temperatures dropped and it was close to 50, the mid 40s all day, and extremely windy. So it was just too cold to be outside and work on the bike. Which is a bummer because I really wanted to work on the bike. And I am really kind of thinking about the kind of stuff I can do on the bike to get it ready for next weekend. Because I think when I'm doing these longer rides, I'm going to have to do it on a Saturday, or on if I'm going to do it, on a Sunday, I'd have to have the Monday off. And so that means it's kind of out for the next few weeks. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing more long rides. I'm hoping to build up and do an even longer ride. And, yeah, it's all good. So, with that report out, I'll see you next time. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, all your positive comments. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next time.